Welcome to another fun-filled edition of Second City Sports Zoom Style.
Zoom style.
Along with Lakeena McGee, which is she. I am Sydney Brown. That's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can follow this podcast, Second City Sports, first right here on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. Our videos will drop every Friday and every Monday. Let me reverse that. Every Monday and every Friday right here on YouTube at War Media. Once again, our videos drop for this podcast every Monday and every Friday right here on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. You can still catch our podcast version every Tuesday and every Saturday at War on Anchor. Our audio version drops every Tuesday and Saturday at War on Anchor, which keeps you over to Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and the iHeartRadio app. We're available on all podcast platforms. Make sure you type in that search engine box, WARR on Anchor, and go to our website, weareregalradio.com for more details. And follow us on all social media platforms, including YouTube, that's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram and YouTube at War Media. Once again, that WARR Media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and right here on YouTube. Thank you in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
And we have very definite opinions.
Yes,
What you know about the Alderman Fred C. Davis, the Black Richard Nixon? For those of you young folks don't get that reference, go look at the episodes of Good Times from the late 70s. You know what I'm talking. You know what I'm saying. Moving on.
Yes.
Let's start off with some good news, Lakeena, as we start off with baseball. Let's talk about my team, the Chicago White Sox. They won their road trip with a 5 out of 6 games. They swept the Kansas City Royals this past weekend by the scores of 3-0, 9-1, and 9-3. Lakeena, I was very impressed about what the White Sox did. We always say that the superstars need to step up and do their part, but it was the role players that did their thing, like Danny Mendick, like Yasmani Grandal, your starting catcher, Larry Garcia, not Larry, Larry Garcia. He came up with a couple of hits, and Nick, a.k.a. Nicky Madrigal, the 2-strike hitter. Don't give him 2 strikes, or else he's going to get you. He did his thing as well, and call me crazy, Lakeena, but did you really miss Adam Eaton this weekend? I didn't, because of what the offense did. They did what they had to do. They took advantage of bad starting pitching. They also had great defense as well. Shout out to Tim Anderson, a.k.a. TA7. He had a great snow cone catch and to create a double play opportunity which ended the game on Saturday. The White Sox seems like they're going at it at all cylinders right now, and that's why they're in first place as we speak today.
Well, and also, too, you took advantage of playing a Royals team that's starting to fall back to earth. They've lost, as of recording, they've lost 4 in a row now. For the White Sox, look, you did what you're supposed to. You swept the Royals. This is 10 straight games you won against the Royals. So I think this is a team that I think that Sox fans were waiting for. Now, look, you saw the depth. Everybody stepped up. All the role players stepped up. You had solid pitching in that 3-game series, especially. So I think, look, despite everything that's happened, I think that the White Sox are kind of going into a groove here now. They have a tough series against the Twins. I know they're a little further back right now in the Central, but the Twins are still pretty good. So I would not write the Twins off just yet. So. And everybody is still kind of within reasonable distance. So, and look, and if you're a White Sox fan, you should be happy with where you're at right now.
And the way this White Sox team is going right now, especially given the injuries to their superstars, Luis Robert and Eloy Jimenez, the White Sox, and I put this out on Twitter on Sunday following the game, it's just a resemblance of the 2005 White Sox. I'm not saying this team is going to win the World Series yet, and we still have a long way to go as we get into the month of May. But the White Sox starting pitching has been tremendous. Check out these statistics from this past week with their 4-run record from their 5-game road trip. Dylan Cease, we talked about in our last episode, his performance was outstanding on Tuesday with 11 strikeouts, no runs. Dallas Keuchel in that loss that we blamed Tony La Russa for, and rightfully so, last Wednesday. Dallas Keuchel pitched 7 innings, no runs, 3 walks, but he had a strikeout. This past Friday, going into the Kansas City series, Carlos Rodon was tremendous with 6 innings of shutout ball. Only gave up 5 hits, but struck out 8. Lance Lynn on Saturday, he had 5 innings pitched. I believe he was on a pitch count, but he did well enough to keep the Royals off the scoreboard with 6 strikeouts, no runs. Lucas Giolito on Sunday, it wasn't his greatest performance, but he had pitched 5 innings, only gave up 1 earned run while giving up 4 hits and 2 strikeouts and 2 walks. Lakeena, that's not very good to great starting pitching across the board throughout your starting rotation. I don't know what is.
Well, and like I said before, you took advantage of a Royals team that sort of, they had a nice start, but, they've fallen back to earth. And you really didn't do anything stupid. You didn't, do anything crazy or stupid to kind of, cost you games, which has been the problem for, you can say, a couple of those losses for the White Sox. You can probably say they probably should be have 21 or 22 wins right now. But I think this is where you should be happy if you're a White Sox fan, where they should be. You're getting a lot of contributions from various guys, like you said, Sid, Madrigal. I guess folks like Madrigal this week, I guess. So 2 weeks ago they were running him out of town. Now they like him. Makata has had some big hits. Mm-hmm. Of course, Mercedes, Mr. Yerman Mercedes, still doing his thing. Andrew Vaughn has stepped up, and Billy Hamilton, contribute a little bit. Also Garcia too. So you get a lot of contributions, and I think that your depth is, the White Sox are showing that their depth is one of the probably have one of the best position depths in baseball.
Mm-hmm. And that's what happened this past weekend. Next man up is the slogan, right? Especially in professional sports. Who's going to come in and fill in that role for the guy who was ahead of you? Can you do what's expected of you, and can you fill that role to perfection? And this weekend showed that these guys on the White Sox and stuff, the names we both mentioned, they did that. Let's see if they can do it this week against the Minnesota Twins. Now, taking one more look back at that road trip for the White Sox, which they went 4-1. They averaged 6.2 runs per game. The ERA overall is at a 0.80. Let me repeat that one more again, as the kids would say. The ERA overall was 0.80. The starters' ERA was at a 0.31. The batting average was at 247. And they hit 3 home runs. But Lakeena, they put a lot of runs on the board by putting the ball in play, hit and run, taking advantage of bad pitches that was thrown across the plate. As we always say, Lakeena, on this show, you can win with a home run for a while, but when that goes, how can you create offense? And the White Sox this weekend, then he hit the long ball a whole lot, but they took advantage of bad pitching. And that's exactly what happened. This is a sign of a good team that is hopefully coming of age.
Well, and we'll see what happens as the season goes. I mean, they got Minnesota for this, first few days of this week, and then they have the weekend series against KC, and then they have they go back on the road to play Minnesota, and then you got the Yankees after that. So it's starting to get you're kind of going to the tough part of their schedule. After the Yankees, they have 3 against St. Louis and 4 against Baltimore, which is actually, they're still pretty good. So you can't really, look past Baltimore. So, I think if you're in a good place if you're the White Sox right now, because I think, you're kind of letting all the bad stuff, all the the silly mistakes that happened. You didn't let it affect you. You didn't make any stupid mistakes this weekend. So, kudos to them, and hopefully this continues.
Yes, hopefully it can continue. As you mentioned, they have a tough schedule ahead with Minnesota here in Chicago for 3 starting tonight, Wednesday and Thursday. You have Dylan Cease. Carlos Rodon will be pitching in that second game. Let me check to see who's going to pitch in that second game. The third game is Carlos Rodon is going to pitch. Dallas Keuchel will be pitching in that second game on Wednesday. So you have Dylan Cease, Dallas Keuchel, and Carlos Rodon all pitching for the White Sox in this important series against the Twins on the South Side. I'm going to put the pressure on them and say that they should sweep the Twins. Like you mentioned, Lakeena, the Twins are down right now. But if you want to win this division, you got to go through them because they've been the barriers of this AL Central for a long time. So I think the White Sox understand that. They've been playing well, winning 4 out of their last 5 games. The defense is on point. The offense is coming around. I'm worried about their bullpen a little bit, and we'll touch on it at some point. But everything else is falling into place right now, especially with that starting pitching. So I'm putting the pressure on the White Sox to sweep the Minnesota Twins. They are down. You keep them down. But realistically, they should do no worse than to take 2 out of 3 from these Twins, especially with Byron Buxton being hurt once again.
Yeah.
Even though he's been Minnesota's best player all year.
Yeah, that should definitely take advantage of that injury for the White Sox too. So, yeah, let's hope they can, and they should, and we'll see. I mean, like I said, Minnesota's scrappy, so I'm sure they're not going to want to. They're 7 games out, but I'm sure they're all it takes is for them to win like 6 in a row, and they're right back in it. So you kind of want to. You want to sort of shake their confidence and keep them down. You don't want to, let them sweep you or win the series, and then they'll be confident going in. So, because you play them again next week. So, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go to the north side. Let's go to the Cubs. Just missed, sweeping the Pirates this weekend. Also, too, shout out to Beth Mullins, who became the first female to call play-by-play games for the Chicago Cubs. She did a great job, as she always does. This weekend, Saturday and Sunday, a split for her, with a win and a loss, but also too, they won the series. The Cubs won the series, so that's confidence-wise, you gotta be feeling pretty good. I mean, again, that Sunday game really bothered me because, again, this was sort of a problem for the Cubs, all year in their losses. The pitching, put them into a hole, and they try to get out of it. They just fell just short in their 9th inning rally. But again, look, they had won 5 in a row. They swept the Dodgers. They won 2 out of 3 against the Pirates. They play the Indians for a small series, early this week. So not a pretty solid week. A pretty solid week, I should say, for the Cubs. This past week. What do you think?
Yeah, as I said in our last episode. They should do no worse to take 2 out of 3 from the Pittsburgh Pirates, and that's exactly what happened. Now, you can create momentum from the comeback attempt on Sunday. Of course, they had an off day yesterday, and so they'll start again on the road tonight at Cleveland, and they had to face Shane Bieber, so that's going to be a tough task. Go ask the White Sox. They faced them 2 times, and they are 0-2 against them this year. Well, Shane Bieber is good against everybody else, so the Cubs will have a tough task on their hands starting tonight. But taking a look back at that series against Pittsburgh, the offense, it cooled off a little bit from that Dodgers series, but they did enough to get by winning Friday's and last Saturday's games, both by the scores of 3-2. Lakeena, you just hope that your big stars will come around like Rizzo and Brian, who's starting to get hot. And Jason Hayward, I know he had a couple of big hits from this last week's homestand as well, which include the sweep of the Dodgers. So you just hope that the offense continues to be consistent and create more runs and not have to depend so much on the long ball.
Yeah, and I think those 2 wins that they had against the Pirates, they actually had to come back, to win those games. So, but I think, look, if you can, win a team, 8-0, but they also, beat a team also, with a 2-1, 3-2 type of thing, I think that can only help your confidence. And so, let's hope that, they can kind of get out of that habit. Of course, they play Bieber tonight, so that's going to be a tough task. As you say, he's probably one of the best pitchers in the AL, if not in baseball. So, that's going to be a very tall task for them. So if they can at least split against the Indians, and they have Detroit after that, they got 4 games against Washington at Wrigley. Washington's been up and down, until later next week they play Louis and St. Louis. So that's probably going to be a big test for them. So, you want to kind of keep that momentum. You're at 500 now as this recording, the Cubs are. So you got to, look, if you can, get that momentum going until you play that series later next week against the Cardinals, you're going to have that confidence to get that momentum going.
You're listening to Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown as we talk about the Chicago Cubs in their series against the Pittsburgh Pirates. From the weekend, they take 2 out of 3. Lakeena, going back to Sunday's loss, Cal Hendricks was the starting pitcher for the Cubs. He allowed 6 runs, 4 earned, and 9 hits in 5 innings. Lakeena, his struggles, especially through the first 3 innings, the first inning in particular, has been a problem all year. You hope that nothing else is bothering him. I know that he gave up 4 home runs a couple weeks ago against the Braves on Sunday Night Baseball, which led to another bad loss for the Cubs. Uh, Last Sunday's start against the Pirates didn't look good either. I want to ask you this question. Do you perhaps consider skipping him in the rotation with the schedule you just mentioned coming up? At least I'm not going to say necessarily put him on the IL, but at least skipping him once in the rotation and see if that helps, or you just keep throwing him out there and see. Hopefully, he can figure it out and turn it around.
I think Ross is probably going to keep throwing him out there to figure out, because that's just the kind of player he is. Hendricks is. So, his next start will be Saturday against Detroit. Also, his start after that will be when that next Wednesday against the Nationals. So I think if of course he's going to be playing Scherzer. So that should be a fun matchup if we can get the good Kyle Hendricks. I don't want to get to the point where we're going to have the good Kyle Hendricks and bad Kyle Hendricks. I mean, look, of course we all know he has a bad for starting the season in April. It's been his career. Just look up his numbers. He gets better and better as the season goes. So let's just hope that. Look, I'm sure if he has a bad start on Saturday against the Tigers, that's probably going to be something that Ross is probably going to think about. But you really don't have nobody else if you're the Cubs. You really don't have nobody else out there that can kind of pick up the slack for, because Arrieta's hurt right now. Hopefully he'll be back for that Cardinal series next weekend. I mean, you just kind of have to keep throwing him out there and just hope that he can kind of get out of this slump.
And also, too, bringing up the injury of part of this conversation, Jake Moransnick injured his hamstring on Sunday playing center field. It looks like he's going to be out for a while. How long, we don't know. But it looked pretty ugly, so we wish the best for him in a speedy recovery. Of course, I believe Nico Horner is out right now, and also too, Ian Happ is out right now. So the depth of this Cubs team is being tested. We mentioned it earlier about the White Sox. So their depth being tested from the start of the season. Look where they are right now in first place. The Cubs, it looks like they're going to have a tougher road ahead unless they start getting some of these guys back soon within the next week or so. It's going to be tough for them.
But you know what, though, they are getting contributions from some of the guys. Matt Duffy, who had that great go-ahead hit against the Pirates on Saturday. Was really close to doing it again on Sunday against the Pirates too, to help extend that game host that could have swept the series for them. But he's contributed. They've had a couple other guys who contributed. So look, I think that at this point they kind of have to okay, you know what, this is a long season. You're gonna have injuries. It's not just the Chicago teams. A lot of teams are going through injuries right now. So it all depends on who can kind of, show their depth and show, what they can be, with those guys out. So we'll see what the Cubs can do. I mean, hopefully, Arrieta will be back next weekend. He'll be eligible to come back from the IL. Hap, hopefully he'll be back. Hayward stayed today because he has a bruised hand. So he's going to, he may miss a game. But, hopefully they can kind of show their depth, to get contributions from guys like Matt Duffy, and, hopefully they can kind of stay afloat in the NL Central.
Yeah, you hope the Cubs can stay afloat because, as we mentioned before, time and time again, ever since the season kicked off, this NL Central is up for grabs. I know many people, including yours truly, consider St. Louis the favorite. We'll get to the best and worst from MLB in just a minute. But you look at where St. Louis is at right now. You're looking at where Milwaukee is right now, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, now dealing with the injury with Joey Votto with his busted thumb. He's going to be gone for a while. So this division is up for grabs. If you can stay at least at 500 or slightly above 500, you'll give yourself a chance.
Yeah, I know St. Louis has won 8 out of the last 10. But again, like I said, like I said, they're not a perfect team, so that division is still there for the taking. If you're the Cubs, I think you better hope that you can try to win some of these tough games, and at least win your series against these tough teams that you're going to have coming up. So at the very least, you can stay right there and stay afloat. And by the time you play St. Louis, you can probably, at the very least, maybe sweep maybe too much to ask of them because, St. Louis is still pretty good. But if you can win that series against the Cardinals, we'll talk about it more, of course, next week. But I think you have a pretty good shot of, being able to still compete in that division.
Yep, and all the Cubs are asking for is a chance. Let's go to the best and worst of base from the weekend of baseball, Lakeena. I'll start off. Shouts out to Max Scherzer of the Washington Nationals and Corey Kluber of the New York Yankees. That was a great pitchers duel. They had to wait it
Hmm.
out for 2.5 hours in that rainy day. I watched the
Yeah.
entire game via my computer. It was a great pitchers duel. It was still a light rain was still coming over the game, but they happened to finish it out. Of course, the Yankees won 43 in 11 innings. Max Scherzer had 14 strikeouts. That's the most by an opposing pitcher in New Yankee Stadium. Of course, the Yankees tied it in the night with Gleyber Torres, a former Cubs prospect, by the way. And Torres won it again with an RBI single for the game winner in the 11th inning. It's one of the best games uh, so far in this young season as we get into the fifth week of the 2021 season. That was good that I saw over the weekend. And of course, the St. Louis Cardinals, you just mentioned, they swept the Colorado Rockies. Nolan Arenado, of the former Rocky, who was traded to St. Louis just right
Mhm.
before the season kicked off, he had a home run as part of the sweep this past Sunday. The San Francisco Giants, I called them an AARP team a couple years ago. They won their series over the weekend at home against the San Diego Padres. They're still holding on to first place in the NL West. Do you still take them seriously? I don't,
No, I
because
don't
I
either.
still we'll get to the Dodgers in just a minute, but I still had this sneaky feeling that the Dodgers will do something big to turn their season around. Uh, shout out to the Giants, but I'm still not a believer in them yet. So I don't even have one foot in. I gotta wait a little bit more. Talk to me after Memorial Day.
Yeah, that's how I feel about the Giants. And I know they're doing, look, I know they're doing very well right now. They're, like you said they won their series against the Padres, and look, they're getting some contributions from some familiar names. Of course, we talked about Longoria, Brandon Crawford, and also Brandon Belt. I mean, they're all still around.
Mhm.
So that's a good thing to see those guys contributing. But like you said, Sid, I mean, I'm not expecting them to stay up there. You know, I mean, you could kind of felt that they kind of benefited from a not a very good schedule. I know they played
Mhm.
I know that's the second time playing the Padres this year so far, but they've played the Marlins. They've played, they played the Marlins like 8 times, 7 or 8 times so far,
Mhm.
and I think they were able to benefit from that. And their schedule will get tougher, as the season goes, especially in this first half of the season. So, and look, commend them for taking advantage of that. They got, Texas, they got the Pirates, and Cincy. They play the Dodgers, of course. They have the Dodgers coming up too. They play them in 2 series, and also to the Angels. So I'm not gonna freak out. I don't think if you're a Dodgers or even a Padres fan, you should be freaking out right now. But look, I mean, you commend them for what they're doing so far and what they're accomplishing, but they're not gonna. I don't think they're gonna stay up here. Look, we saw what was happening with Kansas City, so I'm sure the same thing will probably happen with
Mhm.
the Giants, and then maybe give them, like you said, give them maybe by Memorial Day, they'll probably be back in third place.
Also, we send our congratulations out to Cincinnati Reds starting pitcher Wade Miley, who pitched the uh, MLB's fourth no-hitter this past Friday as part of a 3-0 win over the Cleveland Indians. Well, on this show, we say five because Madison Bumgarner pitched a 7-inning no-hitter a couple weeks ago
We're
against
giving them
the
that. We're
Atlanta
gonna give
Braves on
them
the well.
that. We're giving them
Yes.
that.
So shouts out to Wade Miley. So that was the best from me over the weekend. The New York Mets swept the Arizona Diamondbacks. I watched some of that game on Sunday. Jacob DeGrom had a no-hitter going through four, and then of course the fifth inning was bad for him. Even though the Diamondbacks did scrape off a run, uh, the next inning Jacob DeGrom left with a right uh, side tightness. I know he
Yeah.
missed his last start, but if, as we said before, if you're the New York Mets, if he is injured in the alpha any extended period of time, I know you picked up Francisco Lindor, who's starting to turn around both at the plate and on the defensive end. If Jacob DeGrom is out for any extended period of time, your season is over. I might
And
be exaggerating a little bit, but it's not going to be good.
you're excuse me, you're hanging on by a thread if you're the Mets.
Hmm.
So if any injury to any of your top guys isn't not a good thing. So hopefully DeGrom, just has to do a stint in the IL. Hope Wanda had to miss no extended time. So the Mets have played very well. The Braves took 2 out of 3 from the Phillies. including the
Mm-hmm.
Sunday nighter. That was just that was definitely dominated by them from start to finish. That Wade Miley no hitter. What's interesting about that, Sid, is that the Indians are just the third team in MLB history to get no hit twice before June. So that's crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we all know Wade Miley has had not an up and down career. This is his seventh career team, and he's just a second pitcher after Edison Volquez to do that with his seventh team. He did with the Marlins a few years back in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
So props to him, and he's been he said it that he's had a long road, and no one could take this away from him, this first career no hitter of his. So congrats to him, and also to the Yankees. The Yankees have been playing better lately. Gleyber Torres,
Yeah.
They needed that. I mean, I'm sure Yankees fans are feeling a little bit better now. Yes, the Red Sox are still playing well. They swept their series, but I think it's only a matter of time before they start to level off a bit. The Yankees are right behind, with 3.5 back as of this recording. Also the Rays too, and also the Blue Jays. I know they struggle lately too, but hopefully they're not going to have. They now know where they're going to play their home games, if you will, this year. So hopefully they'll be able to settle.
Like I said, they're supposed to go to Buffalo on June the 1st.
Yeah,
so
So hopefully once they get settled, hopefully they can kind of get their groove going. So. Look, I think right now, you got to be feeling, if you're a baseball fan, you got to be feeling pretty good. I mean, the AL West is still, I know the A's, but the Astros have been playing a little bit better, but, no one's run away in that division either. So I think if you're a baseball fan, you got to be feeling pretty good of where you're at right now. And the Braves are really good too. So if you're, if you're Rob Manfred, the rest of the MLB brass, you got to be celebrating right now.
Also, too, let's give a shout out to the Boston Red Sox. Somehow, some way, they keep winning. I did have the chance to check out some of their series as they swept the Baltimore Orioles in Baltimore over the weekend. The offense just keeps getting better and better for the Red Sox. I'm worried about their starting pitching a bit. Will it be able to hold up? Because, as we all know, Lakeena, offense, it tends to get hot, and sometimes when it goes cold, can your starting pitching hold up? Can their bullpen play its role? But right now, the Red Sox are doing it by crushing teams. And as I said before, I had the Yankees barely winning that division, and I have Toronto represent the AL in that wild coming out of the AL East as a wild card winner. So Boston's doing well right now, but I want to see them against better competition when they play the Blue Jays and when they play the Yankees.
And I think that's going to be the thing that's going to get them in the end is their pitching. And like I said, the hitting has been what has kept them at first place right now. But like you said, Sid, I think their pitch is what's going to get them. And like I said, I don't think they'll be in first place, by, for very long. So I think they're good. I think they're going to go come back to earth. I think, I don't know. I can't say when, but I think they will eventually come down to earth. I think the Yankees and the Rays or Blue Jays will be battling for the AL East.
Yeah. A couple of lowlights from the weekend. Of course, the Minnesota Twins split their now 2-game series with the Tigers. Of course, the third game from Sunday was rained out. That'll be made up in July. As we talked about with the Twins, the White Sox should take care of business on the South Side starting tonight. Also, another low light from the weekend, Arizona Diamondbacks going on the East Coast to get swept by the Miami Marlins, and they get swept by the New York Mets. Arizona is one of those teams you think they'll be able to pull through. Maybe they will, but right now they're on the current long losing streak, and let's see if they can pull out of it. I'm not saying I'm a big Arizona Diamondbacks fan. I'm not, but just I didn't see that coming. And on the flip side, maybe this is despite the DeGrom injury, maybe this will help get things going for the New York Mets. So those are a couple of low lights from the weekend.
Yeah, I think the Diamondbacks, just a couple of years ago they were competing for the NL West, and now look at them. So it's just unfortunate, and it's just crazy how quick baseball. There's a quick turnaround for baseball. You can be competing for a division one year, and then next year you're fighting to kind of stay out of last place. So it's just crazy how that works sometimes in baseball, especially. I would say, like I said, Kansas City. I think that they're starting to fall back to earth. That's probably one of the few lowlights for me. I mean, like I said before, I mean, no one's really running away for their divisions right now. So again, we'll see what happens by the end of this month, but like I said, I think if you're a baseball, you're feeling pretty good right now.
Yeah, you should be feeling good if you're a baseball fan. You're listening to Second City Sports along with Miss Lakeena McGee, which is she. I am Sidney Brown. That's me. As we have a few minutes left in this opening segment, let's turn over the page and give our attention to basketball. We'll start locally with the Chicago Bulls. We'll get to the rest of the league in our next segment. Lakeena, the Bulls, even though, as we said on this show, the last couple of episodes, is too little, too late. Zach LaVine is back in the lineup. They went not 0 for 2. Good grief, that was last weekend. They went 2-0 for the weekend, defeating the Boston Celtics last Friday, 121-99 at the United Center. That was the first game with fans in the stands this season. I know it was an emotionally charged atmosphere. The Bulls fans finally saw a great performance in front of their eyes, live and in person. Then, of course, this past Sunday, they defeated the Detroit Pistons on the road, 108-96. Lakeena, are you encouraged by what you saw this past weekend? Do you think they can carry this over into next season?
I hope so. I think. Look, I know some Bulls fans are saying they should be tanking. Our buddy Matt Peck, and others are saying that that hey, look, you know what? Look, they should tank. Tank. But look, there's no guarantee that even if they won, they've lost. They weren't going to lose every single game. Those last few games. We'll talk about the Detroit game in a little bit. Let's talk about the Celtics game for a second. Look, I think that this is the first time we're seeing that, Zach's back and, with playing with Vooch, and you're seeing the cohesiveness of it. I think this is a team that we thought we were going to see, after the trade, but then injuries and Zach had to sit out for a couple of weeks. It was just crazy. But I think I'm feeling very encouraged right now. And I think, beating Boston, that they've had, the Bulls have had Boston's number this year. Go figure. So,
Yeah.
they've looked really good against him. Coby White's contributing. He's been playing very well lately. He had 25, and so also Zach did. And, Vooch had a double, 18 and 14 rebounds. Got some, Thad Young had 9 off the bench, has some big rebounds too. So, look, I think this is sort of the team that we thought we were going to see. I mean, this sort of, cohesive team. And hopefully, look, make yourself look, and like I've been saying, make yourself look good to free agents. Free agents going to be looking at this.
Yeah.
Free agents going to be looking at this performance and say, hey, maybe that's a team that I might want to play for. You got Zach, you got Vooch, you're playing, for a very well-respected coach and Billy Donovan. So, this make yourself look good to potential free agents. And look, beating Boston, we'll get to them after our break. But my goodness, oh gosh, look how bad they haven't been playing lately. They haven't been playing well lately, I should say. So, but look, Detroit was without like half their guys. So, it would have been crazy if the Bulls would have lost that game against Detroit on Sunday.
They almost lost the lead.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was more garbage time. They were, Detroit wasn't really trying. Let's be honest here. So if you watch the game, so they were really trying. And look, you got a solid showing from them. Zach had 30 and Vooch had 29 and, Coby White had 21. Of course, hopefully this will get rid of the narrative that Zach, that this team is better without Zach. I think they'll show you why that they're not. So, and because it's crazy. We talked about this a few weeks ago, said that people were saying that, well, this team's a little bit better without Zach. Clearly they're not. So
no. Trust me, Zach didn't miss those games due to the health and safety protocols. The Bulls will be in a better position of clinching a playoff spot at worst, being in the position to participate in the play-in tournament. So for those who say that Zach LaVine will be better off on this Bulls roster, you're crazy. The thing that stuck out to me the most from this weekend, Lakeena, you could tell that this guy's time is over. Laurie Marketing.
Yeah.
Friday, 8 points. Sunday's win over Detroit, 2 points. Those minutes are decreasing. And if you're looking forward to trading him or just letting him go, that's pretty bad. And I know I've been criticizing him off and on throughout the season, and rightfully so at times. But if you see in the ending of a player that you thought it was going to be part of your future, this does not look good.
It's just, I don't know what to say about Laurie. You would think, if he would actually be playing better to make himself look good in front of potential, free agent teams, like Dallas or, maybe San Antonio, places like that. But again, he's not playing, a lot of minutes. He's not contributing a lot. So, yes, of course, there's going to be a team out there that is going to want to pay him 100 and some million because it's the NBA. That's what they do. So the Bulls,
Yeah.
the Bulls will just be happy to kind of just, let's just, get rid of him. I'm sure they tried to trade him. No one bit. So maybe they'll try again.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they'll try again to trade him right after the season or whenever that'll be. Whether it's by the end of this week. They probably will be able to then. So they'll probably just let him go and just maybe try to get something from maybe a second rounder. I don't know, but his time is over. So is Valentine, who didn't play in that Detroit game. Which would have been great because he's from Detroit, but Donovan didn't play him. But I mean, look, I think that you want to make yourself look good. On the flip side, though, and look, you want to make yourself look good in front of free agents. So look, if they're gonna at the very least split their wins, split against the Nets. I know they beat the Nets last time, but Nets still have a lot to play for. Again, we'll get to the rest of the NBA in a bit, but they play the Nets twice to finish up the season. They play Toronto and Milwaukee. We'll see where Milwaukee, their mindset is. So they may have something to play for. They might not. So with 4 games left as of this recording, I mean, again, they may end up go finishing 1-3 or finishing 0-4. We don't know, but I'm sure they're going to be they're going to put up a fight, no doubt, to try to end with the very slimmest, getting that hoping in the last spot in the play-in.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, Lakeena. Finish strong, whether you make the play-in tournament or not, and you want to make yourself look good. We talk about this all the time, especially professional sports, especially in football towards the end of the season. Well, you're not going to the playoffs. You have a bad record. You still have something to play for. You're playing for your job. You're playing for pride, and that's where the Bulls are at right now. You're playing for your jobs. You're playing for pride, and your reputation is on the line. So you still have to go out and do your best. Everything is not going to go your way, and that's just a rule of life. Your true character comes out when things are not going your way. We all get exposed, for the lack of a better term. So that's where the Bulls are at right now. Hopefully you finish strong and, like I said, create momentum going into the next season, even though this roster is going to be different. Let's create momentum going into next year, because next year can be promising, especially with the new management and Mark Eversley and Arturas Karnisovas.
Well, yeah, and absolutely. And the great thing about it is that I don't have to see them as long as they're doing their job.
Right.
I don't want them having pressers every 2 or 3 days. Like, well, we know what they're doing. No, we don't. I'm fine with them not doing anything as long as they're doing their job. I don't need to know every little thing that they're doing. So I don't need to know what they're doing. As long as they're doing their jobs, I don't care. Like, whatever. Okay. Just do your thing. And look, I mean, who knows where this team would have been if Zach had not, had to, quarantine, because of safety protocols. Who knows where this team would be, him having to sit out. So we'll see what they can do. I mean, like you said, Sid, just finish strong and make yourself look good to potential free agents. And I think that's what's important right now.
Since we have a couple minutes left, I want to focus in on Coby White. He's been averaging over 20 points a game in his last few games. I know most of that has come due to the absence of Zach LaVine. Can we still say that his days as a starting point guard is over? Because I think that for the rest of his career, I said this before, he's not because of his jersey number, but he's that Gilbert Arenas Vinnie Johnson for you old school listeners. That Vinnie Johnson type. He's a scorer. You can still make plays, but he doesn't have to be John Stockton leading the league in assists. I think that experiment is over. He can still be your starting 2 guard. It depends on who they bring in for next year. If not, you can bring at worst, obviously bring him off the bench, and he can still chip in between 10 and 15 points a game. I think that's his role, whether it's on the Bulls or having been somewhere else for the rest of his career. He's a scoring threat, and I think he can adapt to that role. He's shown signs that he can do more, given more minutes, obviously, but I think he could be that secondary guy or that main guy coming off the bench. I think that's going to be that role for him for the rest of his career.
So he could be Lou Williams.
There you go.
If you want a more modern day, player, how about Lou Williams? If he could be that Lou Williams, the guy that give him enough minutes, he can score, he can pass if he needs to, also rebound too if he needs to. If he could be that guy, and I'm sure he's been open to that, but look, I think you kind of play around with the combos. It depends on who they get. If they can get a point guard, a true point guard for next season, they can pick somebody up. Then you can kind of play around with the combinations there. And, hopefully they'll be able to have an actual practice. They can have an actual sort of, routine where, guys can practice, can be around each other and work out and such. Hopefully once the sanctions, the COVID sanctions are lifted, hopefully we can see more of it. Look, I think he likes it here. I think he'll play whatever role he needs to play, whether it's, being a starter or being a sixth guy off the bench. I think he could do either or at this point. Look, he's still very young, believe it or not. I know that's hard to believe for some people because he's been playing the league for the last few years. Like, he's only 22, so you gotta give him a little bit of time to kind of get some more season. And now you'll have like an actual off season, sort of like he can get in shape, he can add a little bit of muscle or add maybe a jump shot if he needs to. So he could be a Lou Williams. He could probably be sort of like that guy, the Vinnie Johnson guy off the bench and contribute that way.
Yeah, and also too, who's going to have a normal off season? He didn't have that because of the way that last season ended due to the bubble situation, and this current season starting so soon. That's rookie Patrick Williams. He's shown some signs of having an all-around game these last couple of weeks, especially due to the absence of Zach LaVine. But I'm looking forward to see what he does finish out this year, but I expect him to improve the next year. Whether he becomes the next Kawhi Leonard or not, that remains to be seen. But he's going to have an actual offseason, build some muscle as well and work on his offensive game. And if he can do those two things, I think he'll be a better player come next year. I expect improvement from he'll be going into year 2 out of Florida State.
And he's only 19. People need to remember he's only 19. He himself was a sixth man. So for people to say, "Oh, look what Halliburton is doing. Look what the LaMelo's doing." I mean, people need to remember he's only 19 and he was a sixth man. This is like the most basketball he's probably played in his life. So it's going to take him a while to get used to. I mean, like you said, Sid, he can add some muscle. He may have a growth spurt. Who knows? He may grow a couple of inches, and maybe he'll be like an Anthony Davis type player. We just don't know. That story, his story is still being written. So hopefully, look, I'm sure once everything, like we've been saying, once they'll have a normal off season where he can build some muscle, work on his shooting, work on his defense, and then he can kind of be that player that I'm sure that AK and Mark Eversley and also Billy Donovan want him to be.
All right. That wraps up segment number 1. Segment number 2 is right around the corner. When we get back, we'll talk about the best and worst from the weekend from the National Basketball Association. The regular season is winding down. We'll give you some of the key games to look out for this upcoming week. We have a couple other fun stories to get to. And I have a question regarding the television world, a documentary that I watched over the weekend via the YouTube. Along with Miss Lakeena McGee, which is she, I am Sidney Brown, that's me. You're listening to Second City Sports. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to the second half of Second City Sports Zoom style.
Zoom style.
Along with Lakeena McGee, which is she, I am Sidney Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena McGee on the IG.
You can follow this podcast, Second City Sports, right here on YouTube every Monday and Friday at War Media. Once again, at WAR Media, right here on YouTube. The video version will drop every Monday and Friday. Our audio version, our podcast versions will still drop every Tuesday and Saturday at War Anchor. That's once again our podcast version every Tuesday and Saturday at War Anchor, which keeps you over to Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and the iHeartRadio app. Just type in that search engine box on all podcast platforms, WARR Anchor. You can go to weareregalradio.com, and you can follow us on all social media platforms, including here on YouTube. That's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and right here on YouTube. Thank you in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Yes. Now let's get back into the conversation, Lakeena, as we go around the NBA landscape, the best and worst from the weekend as the regular season winds down. Lakeena, the Los Angeles Lakers. They're in a fight for their playoff lives and dealing with injuries. Once again, of course, LeBron James missed the weekend due to re-injuring his right ankle. Anthony Davis scored 36 in last Friday's loss at Portland, but rebounded on Sunday night with a 42.12 rebound performance in a huge win at home against the Phoenix Suns. Lakeena, there's nothing left to be said. I know the big story will be when LeBron James gets back right before the regular season concludes next weekend. I'm resigned to the fact that the Lakers will have a hard road as it is going back to back in terms of winning the NBA championship, but they're going to have to go through the play-in tournament, and they're going to have to sell for that result.
Yeah, I mean their schedule is tough. After Houston, after that game last night against Houston, they go at Utah, at Phoenix, and at Denver.
Mm-hmm.
So those three games will probably play a big role for them. That's Portland's schedule.
Also, they have the New York Knicks.
Yeah, and also too, that was Portland's schedule that I mentioned. That was Portland's schedule I mentioned. So they're in a tough battle with them. After New York, they play the Lakers, Houston, Indiana, and New Orleans. So they've got kind of a little easier schedule, sort of, than the Blazers. So they could perhaps, they're a game apart. The Blazers have the season series with that win on Friday. So, that's probably gonna play a big part. So, if you're a Lakers fan, you're hoping that, to win out, and hopefully maybe the Blazers lose out so that they'll have to go to the play-in game and not you. But again, we'll see if LeBron's back tonight against the Knicks. We'll find out soon if he is. But that was a big win that they needed against Phoenix. I think AD showed you why he's AD. That's 42 points. That's a season high for him. That was a win that they desperately needed for the Lakers. So, I think you got to be feeling pretty confident going into this these last few games. And and like I said, you have a little bit of an easier schedule than Portland does. So you can kind of hopefully you can kind of take advantage of that, and hopefully you can win out, and maybe Portland lose out, and because we've seen them do that too. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And that's what's going to have to happen if you're a Lakers fan. Of course, with the victory on Friday, and talking about Portland, they own the tiebreaker over the Lakers. So the Lakers just have to take care of business, and hopefully Portland stumbles down the stretch. We'll see what happens with that. Another moment that I witnessed over the weekend, the New York Knicks, they lost big time at Phoenix on Friday, but they came back on Sunday afternoon, last Sunday afternoon, to beat the Los Angeles Clippers. The first time they won at Staples Center against the Clippers since November of 2010. So it's been a whole decade since the Knicks beat the Clippers in LA.
I mean, yeah, look, it's fine. I mean, look, I think that the Knicks are, has definitely kind of the team that kind of came out of nowhere. I don't think anybody thought that, they're at the number 4 seed right now. Well, they're kind of in a battle for that number 4 seed with the Hawks. So, and the Heat too, they're really a game apart. So, like I said, look, we've seen this movie before. We've seen Tibbs teams do well for like maybe a year or two, and then everybody, like I said, knees and ankles and Achilles. So let's just wait until the playoffs, and also too, if they can do this long term, because we've seen this movie before in both Chicago and Minnesota with Tibbs. So I don't know how long this will last, but look, Julius Randle will definitely get most improved, and And look, I'm just, I'm sure the NBA is always better when the Knicks are playing, and I'm sure the NBA is happy that the Knicks are back on top, or near the top. But again, we've seen this movie before. I won't rain on their parade, Knicks fans' parade, but I'll let them have this one for now, and we'll see. We'll see how they look. I'm not trying to be funny here, so I'm being very serious. But we'll see how they fare in the playoffs. It's all going to be about matchups for them, because they could probably end up losing to, if they end up playing one of the top teams or one of the teams for the play-in game. So we'll see.
Yeah, they're taking advantage of a bad middle to bottom half of the Eastern Conference playoff bracket, so you have to give them credit for that. I heard some people over the weekend, including Mark Jackson of ESPN, he said that Tom Thibodeau should be the number 1 candidate for head coach of the year. I get where he's coming from with that. I think he should be number 2, but as I said on this show before, Monty Williams should be the number 1 candidate for head coach of the year for the Phoenix Suns. I know some people who are checking in right now saying, well, Phoenix is up there because of the Lakers' roles. Injury woes. No, people, Phoenix has been doing this all year, okay? And Chris Paul, who should be really your true number one contender for MVP, he probably won't get it. But Phoenix has been a consistent winning team all year. They've been dominant in the Western Conference. I know they're battling Utah for that number one spot. I know they had a bad loss at the Lakers this past Sunday night, but Phoenix has been consistent all year. So Monty Williams, he's the number one candidate for head coach of the year for me. Tom Thibodeau will be number two behind him for me. And now, as far as MVP is concerned, like I said, Chris Paul will probably be number three candidate for me behind Jokic and Embiid from Philadelphia. So that's how I will rank them. I'm with you. I'm giving the Knicks credit. I'm not going to give my New York hate. And we're not going back to the 90s with the Knicks and Bulls were battling each other. I'm not going that far. I'll give them their props, but let's not go haywire, folks. Let's just keep things in perspective.
Well, I understand where Mark was coming from when he made those comments, but they're the number 4 seed. They're taking advantage of a not so good middle to bottom tier Eastern Conference. So I'll look. You play who you play in your schedule, so it's not their fault that the East is not very good. But again, that's all contribute to like the players and what they've done. For me, I think it's Monty Williams, Quinn Snyder, Doc Rivers, and Tibbs. Those are probably like my top 4 if you want to go in order.
Okay.
Yeah, Steve Nash probably will get some consideration too for what he's done. Despite guys, taking games off and not necessarily being healthy, or just taking games up. I don't know what the heck's going on over there in Brooklyn, but I know some people may know more about that.
But they'll take some players off the lineup before that game tonight against Chicago.
Well, yeah, we can only hope, right? But we can only hope, right? But look, as far as MVP, I think Embiid, look, just because they're 1 seed, I think Embiid will probably get. I know he was out for a couple of weeks because of an injury, but he'll probably get it. I'm sure it'll be very close between him and Jokic. Mm-hmm. CP3 should be in the top 2, but you know how some people are. So, because that's sort of a definition of what MVP is. I think that it's because of him and because of good coaching and because, guys are meshing, that Phoenix is where they are right now. And look, I think it's not folks' fault that people don't want to watch Phoenix play basketball. Like you guys are in your, Los Angeles soapbox. I mean, the Phoenix has been playing pretty well. They've been in the top 4 all year. So for people to say that, it's because of the Lakers injury woes that they were able. Now, there are a couple of teams you could probably say that has taken advantage of their injury woes. Denver, you can probably say that. I know they've had their issues too, of course, with Murray being out. Also, Dallas, I mean, we'll get to them in a second, but, you kind of say that they might have taken advantage of it too, but I wouldn't put Phoenix on that list. Not a chance.
Did you check out the Wizards-Pacers game from this past Saturday?
That was probably one of the strangest games from like all season. That was just really strange.
Yeah, the Wizards defeated the Pacers 133-132 in overtime. Russell Westbrook had another triple-double with 33 points, 19 rebounds, and 15 assists, but it was his block shot at the end with his offhand, with his left hand, that secured the victory for the Washington Wizards. The Wizards have been on the road for the past month. The Pacers are still trying to hang on in there along with Chicago and Charlotte and a couple other teams to participate in that play-in tournament, but I did not see this coming from Washington. I thought they were going to be one of the worst teams in the league. Head coach Scott Brooks, I know our guy Ken Davis from That Davis Show and the host for the Under Center podcast from NBC Sports Chicago covering the Bears. He hated Scotty Brooks for years. I don't know how he feels about him now, but I'm assuming the same. But, you have to give head coach Scotty Brooks some credit here. I know Bradley Beal is currently out. He'll miss the next 2 games. He'll be reevaluated on Friday. But the Wizards are playing some very good basketball right now, and they have as best a chance as anybody of those teams I just mentioned to participate in the play-in tournament. They're being carried right now by Russell Westbrook.
Well, and look, Beal had 50 points in that game against the Pacers, and I think this is the 3rd time in history that teammates one teammate had a triple-double, a 30-point triple-double, and the other had a 50-point game. Kevin McHale and Larry Bird did in 85. You go all the way back to 61 where, God rest his soul, Elgin Baylor and Jerry West did that too. It's going to be interesting to see how they finish because, that hammy's been bothering him all year, Beal. So, these last couple of games, it's going to be up to Westbrook to kind of sort of, keep everything kind of afloat and keep everything kind of like intact, so that the Wizards will be able to make that play in. So we're going down to the wire here, and with these are the type of injuries that you don't want to have, and it's gonna be interesting to see how they play without Beal. Because of course the hammies are always tricky. So they have Atlanta, twice, they have Cleveland, and they finish up with Charlotte. So they should be able to win 2 or 3 of those games.
Yeah.
Maybe, but we'll see. I mean, look, it's gonna be up to Westbrook now.
Yeah, you said they have 2 against Atlanta, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, they should do no worse than a split.
Yeah,
because the rest of that schedule on paper is pretty easy.
Yeah, and New Orleans, they've been officially out of the playoff contention. So I mean, Charlotte, I should say, Charlotte's sort of like jockeying for position. So we'll see how they look. Could they maybe sit some of their guys? I don't know, but we'll see with that last game. That last game at Charlotte could be very important though for the Wizards. Make sure they hang on.
Speaking of the Denver Nuggets, going back to the Western Conference, they lost both their games over the weekend, including their game at home on Saturday night to the Brooklyn Nets, 125-119. Michael Porter Jr. led Denver with 28. I like the way he's been playing as of late. Kevin Durant decided to play for Brooklyn. Woohoo! Scored 33 points, grabbed 11 rebounds, and dished out 7 assists. I'm not worried about Denver too much, Lakeena. It's just about how they will play come playoff time, because we all know that they'll be without Jamal Murray. Aaron Gordon will be in the bigger role, who they acquired at the trade deadline. Like I said, Michael Porter Jr. has been playing a whole lot better ever since Jamal Murray's injury. He's been getting more playing time. We saw glimpses of this from him last year in the bubble, but it's time for him to step out of his shell and come out to shine. So we'll see what happens come playoff time for Denver and Brooklyn. Like I said, can get you guys healthy in time for the playoffs.
Yeah,
because it looks like the plan was they weren't going to take this regular season seriously anyway.
Yeah, I think that's what they're waiting for. Right? I think Harden. Some people were saying the same thing about Harden, that he wants to wait till the playoffs. I know he's got that hammy that's been bothering him, but I think that's probably what they're doing. I don't think Nash wants to overexert his guys at this point. So just even though 72 gamer, but let's just wait and see how everything kind of plays out and such. And like I said, I mean, they'll probably just wait until the playoffs. I think that's when they'll probably maybe Katie will be healthy, or Harden will be healthy. So I think they're just kind of just sort of kind of waiting until the playoffs to saving all their energy. Yep.
Also, one more low light from the weekend. The Boston Celtics, we talked about in our last segment, they lost big time to the Bulls here in Chicago, 121-99. They lost at home to the Miami Heat on this past Sunday afternoon in the first game of their short 2-game series. The Miami Heat, no one's talking about them. I know many people have written them off this year because of their quote-unquote lucky run to the finals last year, but it seems like they're starting to turn around just in time for the playoffs, led by Jimmy Butler and Duncan Robinson. Yeah, can you really take the Miami Heat seriously come playoff time?
It's going to depend on matches. So I think if you're the Heat, I think that they had that crazy game against the Celtics where I think they were up by like 15 and they kind of took their foot off the gas, in that game. So but I think they're saving their energy for the playoffs too, because they were in the bubble last year. They were able to hang on. So you got to commend that whole team for sort of hating on and proving that maybe last year wasn't really a fluke after all. Now, as far as the Celtics are concerned, they play again tonight, so the Heat and the Celtics. So we'll see if the Celtics can kind of bounce back. But I'm starting to wonder. People are already asking for Brad Stevens' job, and look, I think people need to remember that Kemba, Tatum have, all those guys have had injuries at one point this year, so they haven't really been able to play together. So I think that's probably playing a little bit of a part too. Marcus Smart's also been out too, so we have not seen this team at full strength yet. But you wonder though, is this playoffs? Is this going to be kind of like a make or break for Brad Stevens? Because there were already folks that when they had that slow start early in the year, that people were already asking for his head. So we'll see what they can do. Come playoff time. But I don't know that they got to play that play-in game. It looks like they're going to be in there. So I don't know. I just don't know at this point with the Celtics.
Speaking of the Celtics and the Heat, Lakeena, so Precisely did. Let's jump into the schedule for the key games in the NBA for this upcoming week as we're entering the last week of the regular season. Of course, starting tonight, which is Tuesday for those listening on the podcast. Tuesday night, the first game of that TNT doubleheader, as Lakeena mentioned, is Miami at Boston wrapping up their two-game series. Can the Heat sweep this series and improve their standards within the Eastern Conference? And can Boston hang on and avoid the play-in tournament? Also, at the same time, at 6:30 p.m. Chicago time, is the Los Angeles Clippers at the Toronto Raptors in Tampa. Can the Clippers rebound from that embarrassing loss to the Knicks at home on Sunday? At 7 o'clock, we'll have Philadelphia at Indiana to take on the Pacers. Of course, we have the Nets at the Bulls at the United Center with fans in the stands. And at the same time, at 7 p.m., we'll have Memphis hosting the Dallas Mavericks. Of course, you mentioned Dallas just a couple moments ago. Lakeena, Luka Doncic was kicked out of the game the other night against the Cleveland Cavaliers by purposely or maybe accidentally swinging at the crown jewels of Colin Sexton. That did not look good.
Yeah, maybe it was an accident, maybe it wasn't. He's not gonna say anything, so whether or not he was, but he's actually one flagrant away from being banned, so he better be careful.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah.
these refs have quick triggers, so he better be very
yes,
careful
they do.
because, you know, like you don't want to be out for I miss a couple of key games, you know, in the playoffs. You don't want to do that, but so he better watch himself. There's also, too, Phoenix and Golden State, that should be a fun one at 9 o'clock.
Yes.
That should be a lot of fun. And probably the bigger one, we talked about it, New York and Los Angeles. We'll see if Los Angeles can keep that momentum up with that big win against Phoenix a couple of days ago.
Yeah, big game for both teams. Let's see if LeBron James returns tonight. As you mentioned, can Anthony Davis keep up this pace in terms of scoring? He's done a heck of a job these last couple of games. Should the Knicks win this game tonight, that's going to do a whole lot of confidence for them. And then if you're the Lakers, you're definitely in the red. As I said before, you have to accept the fact that you're going to play in the play-in tournament. But big game for both teams. Confidence will go a long way whoever wins this game tonight.
Absolutely. Should be a lot of fun on TNT at 9 o'clock, folks. Make sure you check it out. All right, let's go to tomorrow's game. Sid, you got a big one here. You got Washington and Atlanta. You know, Atlanta sort of, you know, playing for positioning, and Washington trying to, you know, without Beal, now they got to try to see if they can keep up, you know, they're in the play-in right now as this recording, but they hope they kind of like they can easily be out of it if they lose. So it's up, like I said, it's up to Westbrook now.
Yeah, who would be the first team to score 130 points? I'll put it out there.
Maybe.
Whoever's the first team to do that, they'll win.
Yeah, absolutely. San Antonio and Brooklyn, that should be a fun one at 7 o'clock. Also,
that's a back-to-back for Brooklyn coming home from a road game in Chicago.
They still got a lot to play for. They're going to try to get that number one seed in the East, so they're still trying to get that. Boston and Cleveland, they better. If you're Boston, you better win that game because it won't look good there. New Orleans and Dallas, you got Zion versus Luka. That should be a fun one.
Yep, and also too at 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, the second game of the ESPN doubleheader, we'll see the Portland Trail Blazers taking on the Utah Jazz. I don't know if Donovan Mitchell will be back for that game, but Utah's still been on the road without Mr. Mitchell. For Portland, this is a big game for them. Big game for both teams. The Jazz are trying to fight off the Suns for the number one seed in the West, while the Portland Trail Blazers will try to avoid participating in the play-in tournament for the second straight year.
Definitely a big game for both teams. You know, Utah trying to sort of hang on to that one seed in the West, and Portland trying to stay out of having to play that play-in game. So, if you're Los Angeles, if you're the Lakers, you got your own game. You're going to be, coming off, second of a back-to-back against Houston. So don't take Houston lightly. So it's definitely a big game for all these teams, well, except for Houston, of course. It's going to be a big game for all these teams. A lot of these teams have a lot to play for at this point of the season since we're only got a few days left in the regular season.
All right, let's go to Thursday night's action. For the first game of the TNT doubleheader, we'll feature the Philadelphia 76ers traveling to South Beach to take on, shout out to Alana Techauer, her Miami Heat.
Should be a lot of fun there. Philly trying to hang on. They're trying to hang on to the number one seed in the East, and Miami still trying to keep themselves out of that play-in game. So should be a lot of fun there. San Antonio and New York, that's definitely one of those old school A's NBA. So it's definitely going to be a lot of scrapping going on there. Toronto and Chicago, we'll see where the Bulls will be by the time they commence on Thursday. They might be officially be out of it by then. The odds are not in their favor, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I'm sure they're still going to put up that fight.
Yep. And also, too, at 7 o'clock Chicago time, another big game in terms of playoff chase. The Memphis Grizzlies will host the Sacramento Kings. At the same time, we'll have Denver and Minnesota. And then wrapping up the TNT Thursday night doubleheader, the last one for the regular season, Portland at Phoenix. That should be fun. Now, the first one to 140 points should win that one.
And also, too, it's going to depend on the positioning, right? Portland's trying to stay out of that play-in, and Phoenix is trying to sort of, they're trying to claw their way back to that number one seed. They had it for like a day, but of course, they lost. Yeah. So I'm sure I'm sure they're still going to have a lot to play for and try to get that number one seed. It'll be tough, but I'm sure that this will be a lot of fun. Like you said, first 140 wins, no doubt.
All right, let's wrap up the schedule for Friday, the last Friday of the regular season. At 6 o'clock Chicago time, we'll have the Washington Wizards hosting the Cleveland Cavaliers, as Washington will try to keep pace and to participate in the play-in tournament. At 7 o'clock, you'll have Denver traveling to Detroit to face the Pistons. Of course, at the same time, we'll have Philadelphia hosting Orlando. The Jazz will travel to OKC to face the Thunder. At 8 o'clock, we'll have Dallas hosting the Raptors. The Clippers traveling to Houston to take on the Rockets. And then at 8:30 p.m. To wrap up the ESPN doubleheader, we'll have New Orleans at Golden State.
Yeah.
It's not a doubleheader.
It's not a doubleheader.
Single game for a single game for ESPN. So that's New Orleans at Golden State. Golden State, can Steph Curry keep up this pace, averaging over 30 points a game as the Warriors try to inch closer to participating in that play-in tournament?
Yeah, you got to commend Steph for what he's done. I mean, but he's just doing 30-point game. That another 30-point game for him. That's the most the time for the most since Kobe did it back in 06 and the 05-06 season. It's just amazing what he's done. And at 33, I mean, you have to give him props. And I think the Warriors. I think he's probably the reason. And probably because they Wiggins too that the Warriors are kind of like right there, like in that play-in, because I think a lot of people probably didn't think they probably even make the playoffs because of what happened with Clay. So you got to commend him and for what they've done. Also, Steve Kerr for doing such a great job with the team, and and also Wiggins too. He's contributed a lot. I think going to Golden State has definitely revitalized. I should say. So slightly RE words here, but revitalized his career.
Yeah.
So just amazing what they've done. So. Will they be able to make some damage in the playoffs? That's another thing, but I think right now we gotta Steph. I'm sure people will say Steph should be in the MVP discussion. I don't think so, but but look, you gotta clap to him for what he's been doing.
You're listening to Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Browns. We have these last few moments left for this episode today. Lakeena, you wanted to mention something quickly about Arlington Heights and the Chicago Bears. News has been coming out of those two camps within the last week and a half or so.
Yeah, I mean,
I know we talked about it before a couple of months ago when it first broke, but there's been some leeway here and there over the last week and a half.
There have been some
again.
Yeah, I mean, look, there have been some suitors. The Arlington race, the Raceway, a historic, racetrack. There have been some, great, races over the years, but it's switching ownership, and some people have said that maybe perhaps the Chicago Bears, should probably move their games to Arlington. Now there's word that maybe, that the mayor of Arlington says the Bears are seriously considering a move out of Soldier Field to his town. He's the one that put it out there. No one for the Bears to say anything, but the mayor of Arlington Heights, he's the one that's been putting it out there. Tom Hayes, he's the mayor of Arlington, and he kind of put out there a couple of days ago that maybe that the Bears are considering moving now. Oh, no, of course, no one has for the Bears to say anything yet, but he's kind of put it out there that he said that the Bears could be a good fit for them, and they're looking for new owners, and and that the Bears are considering it now. Will that actually happen? No one really knows, but it's definitely something that kind of to keep your eye on, I think.
I think the current lease with the Chicago Park District, which owns Soldier Field, where the Bears play on the lakefront, I believe that lease is up in 2033, if I'm not mistaken. That's what
Yeah,
I've heard.
yeah.
And so it's going to be it's going to be a while, folks, another decade or so. Uh, as we mentioned before, as I said before on this show, majority of your season ticket fan base for the Chicago Bears are in the suburbs, in particular the northern suburbs, and some of the western suburbs too, but particularly in those northern suburbs like Arlington Heights and Naperville, Lansing, and all those surrounding areas. If you put that stadium in Arlington Heights, those folks for the northern suburbs, they still will have some ways to travel, but not so much. Now, for the people that live in the city or in the southern suburbs like we do, it's going to be a drag, especially during the late fall, early winters. The weather can get nasty around here. Here, I mean Chicago, for those of you listening and watching outside the Chicago area. It could be a challenge, especially if the Bears are mediocre like they were last season, barely getting into the playoffs. Do you really want to spend $300 to $500 a ticket and to go through hell in terms of travel to go to Arlington Heights to see a bad product? I don't. Now, business-wise, it makes sense because you'll finally get a dome, and you'll finally get the majority of your fan base not having too much trouble attending those games. But if you're the city of Chicago, it all comes down to money. You still have other attractions in terms of tourism, okay, because you're the third largest city in the United States. But losing the Bears and losing that iconic spot of playing in front of those skyscrapers and playing on the lakefront, playing close to downtown, that's going to hurt. So I'm not, like I said, this is a long ways from being over. But if you're the Bears, you don't want to lose that spot. But see, this is what happens when you don't own your own stadium. You had to go through the city of Chicago like they do right now.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the thing that, look, if you look at the last renovations, it didn't look good. I mean, people have said it looks like a spaceship.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, look, you have to, if you want to put a dome, if you want to, host Final Fours, or perhaps, host, more concerts and, and whatnot. And I think that's been the sort of the problem with Soldier Field. I mean, you look at what Jerry Jones paid for his stadium, the AT&T stadium, that massive stadium. But no one's really asking for that, something like that. Maybe something like SoFi Stadium over in Los Angeles, which is a beautiful stadium, and
the host of this year's Super Bowl.
Yeah, so that's gonna be a beautiful stadium once they start letting fans in. I'm sure by then.
In the 2028 Olympics.
Yeah, so I think that's, if you're Chicago, I think that's what you want. So if you lose, to Arlington, and the Bears and moving there, that is a big tourist thing that you're going to lose. So if you're Chicago, you better, negotiate with the Bears. Say, okay, look, what do you want to do for this next renovation? Do you want a dome? Do you want? Look, you can, for all like the Soldier part of it, you can kind of make that a touristy thing. Maybe have it like its own wing, maybe away from Soldier Field. So maybe that way, that if it's such sacred. Because I'm sure the park, they're just going to say, well, that's a sacred part. That's a sacred, part of the stadium. So we can't touch that. And I think that's part of the problem, is why the Bears are in this situation that they're in now. I think in the end, I think they are probably going to have to compromise and say, look, okay, do you want to put a dome over it? Fine, for weather purposes. I know the Bear weather fans are not going to like that. But if you want to host a Super Bowl, if you want to host a Final Four and other things, you're going to have to do that. So I think, look, this is a long way from being over, folks, and this is a long way from being a reality. So I think that people need to kind of it's good to talk about, but let's just chill on that for a second.
Yeah, also to look at the stadium situation for the San Francisco 49ers. I know a whole lot of people, especially in this town that does sports radio, brought them up. Of course, San Francisco played at Candlestick for many years. Now they play their home games in Santa Clara, and near Silicon Valley. So they put their stadium where majority of their season ticket holders are. And so I know people said for business purposes, the Bears can do the same thing, which makes sense business-wise, yes. But as far as tourism attraction and the site of playing along the lakefront, if you're the Bears, you don't want to lose that. If you're the city of Chicago, you definitely do not want to lose that because that's extra money being put in your pocket, especially during the fall and early winter,
Yeah, so you don't
where
want to
people don't
lose
go
that.
out much.
Yeah, so you definitely don't want to lose that part. And I'm sure they'll figure it out. They've got years to figure it out, but I think
Hmm.
there's gonna have to be some push pull with the Chicago Park District because
Yes.
unfortunately this is what happens when you don't own your rights to your stadium. You have to go to the park, go to another realm who may not have your same vision, your same mindset, and that's another part of the problem.
Yeah. All right, Lakeena, let's turn the page. Since we have a few minutes left, let end this episode with hopefully something fun and thoughtful and informative as well. This past Saturday, I was watching the White Sox and the Royals, but via my phone in Instagram. I did check out the latest Verzuz battle. By the way, we didn't do this on our last episode. Happy belated Mother's Day to all the mothers out there from us here at War Media and Second City Sports. During Mother's Day weekend, Verzuz had their latest battle between R&B groups, super groups from the 1990s. That's SWV, Sisters with Voices, and Xscape, who are based out of Atlanta, produced by JD, aka Jermaine Dupri. They had the latest round of the Verzuz battle. Lakeena had a chance to check out some of that. SWV, they had some hits along with Xscape. I wasn't a super fan of both these groups. I do like some of the songs that those groups did. I know they had a big impact on the R&B world in the 90s, along with TLC, RIP, the late Lisa Left Eye Lopez. But looking at that battle, Lakeena, I thought that SWV, they started to pick it up after the intermission. I know we talked about it before we started recording, but they started to pick it up a little bit. But I thought Xscape brought it from start to finish, and they can really harmonize. Folks, for you, folks, especially you younger listeners and viewers that don't know who these groups are. First of all, do your research, especially right here on YouTube. Those of you watching right here on YouTube, research some of their songs and research both the episodes of TV One's Unsung because TV One did a heck of a job of profiling both these groups. Xscape brought it, especially when they did the harmonization of a couple of their songs. They still got it from the early to mid '90s. So if I had to judge the battle from what I saw, I think Xscape won hands down.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I think the SWE kind of like dragged themselves that first half after the intermission. I'm sure the Doritos or Ciroc people probably told them, you know what, y'all better get up and, actually sing and actually get into it and actually act like you're getting into it before these checks clear. So I wouldn't be surprised. So yeah, but look, I thought it was a good battle. I mean, I think Xscape won the first half, but I think SWV kind of won the second half. So I think it was sort of a draw for me. If we had to ask, like, I think SWV, I like SWV just a little bit better than Xscape because I think they had more like commercial hits. Of course, Xscape had their share of radio hits as well. So they both were very commendable. But I've heard like some people were saying, well, what about In Vogue? I mean, look, unless you're going to have all four members in the same room, which will not happen if you know the story on
Unfortunately, that. Yeah.
Well, you guys can Google that, but look, I thought it was a great Verzuz. Started off kind of slow, but got better after the second half. Spinderella was doing the music for SWB. It
was great to see her again. Yes,
it was great to see her after everything that's happened. Yeah, everything that had kind of transpired with Salt and Pepper. Again, Google is your friend, folks. You can Google that. I won't don't want to get into that, but I mean, look, I think these Verzuz battles have been great for all of us. To bring back great memories of great '90s R&B music. It was a lot. It was a lot of fun. I mean, look, they played a lot of their newer stuff, which is fine. But the reason for these type of Verzuz, battles is that you play your hits, play the hits.
Yes.
And I think that's sort of the thing that kind of I'll give it like maybe a kind of a B-, but they played too many of the newer stuff. So I don't know about you, Sid, but I was just like, I'll give it a good B-.
I kind of agree with you. B-, C+. Like I said, part of it has to do with the SWV coming out sluggish in the beginning. Like you said, especially after the intermission, they really got into it, but they were trying to catch up to Xscape clearly because Xscape, as I said, from the parts that I saw live, they brought it from start to finish. So, and they still got it in terms of their voice. So, like I said, if I had to judge, I'll give the battle overall to Xscape.
Yeah.
Like you say, even though SWV had the more commercial success than Xscape, You know, Xscape, in my opinion, won this battle.
Yeah, yeah, but like I said, I think it was if I overall, I think it was a draw. But that's just me. But look, I mean, but again, any artist that decides to participate in these future versus battles, play the hits. You can say the new music stuff for like at the end, but play your hits, play the hits.
Announce which any new battles are coming up because I missed that part.
I haven't seen any. I mean, they had Method Man and
Okay.
Redman a couple of weeks ago. You can go back and listen to that if you guys missed it. Of course, the great, Isley Brothers and Earth, Wind and Fire. They haven't come up
We
with
talked
any.
about that.
Yeah, they haven't come out with any new battles yet. So we'll see. I'm sure they're still putting out feelers to some artists and stuff. So we'll see. I haven't seen anything, but look, I'm sure like they'll surprise us, when they do announce those new battles.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it right here on Second City Sports. Lakeena, last topic before we close out, sticking to the world of entertainment. Of course, any job in what you do, whether it's your 9 to 5 or what we do here, podcasting, whatever you do, you need to break away. And that's what happened to me on Saturday night. So I said, I was a little bit bored. I wanted to, get away from everything. So I was flipping through YouTube, and I saw an old VH1 program I remember watching live. And this was back in 2005 called Black in the 80s. It talked about all the black actors and news anchors who got their big break and their big shot in the 80s. They were talking about all these TV shows, of course, The Cosby Show, Benson, and of course, Brian Goebel, who's from Chicago, by the way. When he got his shot during the NBC Today show, of course, he was doing sports before he did that. And of course, they talked about old shows like A Different World and Family Matters and some of those other shows that premiered back in the 80s. I want to, before I ask my next question, Lakeena, it was another program that they brought up during that documentary. I wanted to ask you, since you're a woman, I'm not trying to be funny here, but I remember this show as a kid, but I didn't realize the impact of it until I found out some information when I was a teenager. Do you remember the CBS put out a drama, I believe it was back in 1989, called The Women of Brewster's Place?
Yeah,
Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was a mini series.
Yeah, it started Oprah Winfrey, who executive produced that, by the way.
Uh-huh.
Robin Givens,
Mm-hmm.
the now late Cicely Tyson. There was a few other superstars that were part of this miniseries, and it was the first black drama to make a debut on network television. Do you remember that at all? If so, can you tell us what was your overall experience of watching that miniseries?
Yeah, I mean, look, look. I think it was based on a series of books, a book series, I should say, and it was sort of like look, I mean that it was a miniseries that aired in '89, I believe, and I think also had Jack Harry was also on that show. It was
From
sort of
227.
yeah, it was kind of like a who's who of top black female entertainers from the stage and from the screen and such. So it was a pretty good cast, and it sort of dealt with the sort of like the trials and tribulations of black women in the inner city, and it was sort of like okay, this is sort of like this is cool to see, and also argument about different skin types and such, and
Mm-hmm.
there was about romance and loss and everything else that happened. I mean, look, it was one of those miniseries that I wouldn't watch it again because it had a profound impact on me. Not that I didn't like the series, but I just thought it was
Right.
it was just, for me, it was just like it was a little bit it was a little heavy for me because I was so young when I watched it. Now it was definitely kind of like, it definitely had a big impact because it was like sort of one of the first miniseries in that era. That was when miniseries were really big back in the late 80s and early 90s. They aired in 1990. Sort of like a long miniseries. It was like right up there with like Roots and the Thornbirds and those type of things. And look, I thought it was a solid miniseries, and it was definitely like one of those miniseries that had an impact on people. And it was long. You can't deal with those type of long miniseries now because people don't have the patience for that in peak TV.
Mm-hmm.
But look, it made a great impact. I mean, back in that era, especially where the novel is set. But I liked it. Like I said, I haven't watched it in years, though I wouldn't want to watch it again. But I no from like from my own standpoint for various reasons. But I thought for what it was, and I thought it was a solid miniseries. I thought it was a good miniseries. Is it up there with like those ones I mentioned? Yeah, but it's definitely like the top 10 or top 15 for me.
And of course, during that documentary, Black in the '80s, go look for it right here on YouTube. Of course, they talked about the effects of when the Cosby Show was on the air. Of course, all the other networks, as I mentioned before, started having Black family TV shows like Family Matters, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air as we got into the '90s, and those types of shows. And then, of course, I watched another documentary. It was 2 parts. You can watch. You can find it on YouTube. The Rise and Fall of UPN, and of course, we all remember when Fox started in the late '80s into the '90s. They had all these Black shows, and then besides Martin, and eventually they got rid of Rock. But besides In Living Color and Rock and Martin, all the other Black shows that they had, they got rid of them within the first couple of years. Of course, when UPN and the WB came along, now it's the CW. They had all these Black shows. Of course, the WB got rid of them toward the late '90s. They kept the Jamie Foxx show around. And remember, the Wayans brothers was on that show, on that network too, the WB. Of course, UPN and Moesha, and then later Girlfriends, and all these other shows that lasted 1 year and they got rid of. And I was watching a third documentary, and one of the quote-unquote TV critics said that we're not that far away from having those kinds of sitcoms again, especially now with Hulu and Netflix and these exclusive streaming services that we have now. My question to you, Lakeena, and to the audience is there room for Black TV family sitcoms in 2021? If so, could it be still on network television, or do you think it will fit on a exclusive streaming platform?
Well, I think Anthony Aronson and Tracy Ellis Ross would like a word. I mean, Blackish just got picked up again. I think this will be their 6th season on ABC. So it's showing you that look, it is possible for a sitcom. The sitcom itself, I think, as a whole, I think it still has a place in network television. Of course, yeah, you got Jamie Foxx has a new show on Netflix. That's pretty good. Keenan got picked up, of course, Kenan Thompson, all that, and SNL, his sitcom just got picked up. He was getting good ratings. Young Rock, which is based on, of course, on The Rock, his early years in the '80s, that also got picked up. They're both on NBC. Both just got picked up for their respective second seasons, getting good ratings. And I think that there's always going to be a place for Black sitcoms or any sitcom, I should say, for that matter. Mom's just going to be having their last episode on Thursday, and there's like 7 or 8 seasons for them. So look, there's always going to be a place for sitcoms. Now, as far as for those past sitcoms you just mentioned, Sid, I mean, there were some bad ones.
Yeah,
I won't mention them, but there were some bad ones. And look, I think that there's always going to be, I think in network television, I think especially, the CW doesn't have any sitcoms, none whatsoever. So they don't have a division for that. So I wish they would, because, going to all superhero type of thing, I mean, it just doesn't work, especially if you're trying to broaden your audience. That's not going to work. So I'm hoping at some point they kind of wake up and say, maybe we should bring back sitcoms, since there is still an audience for that. Now, as far as, look, I think there's always going to be a place for sitcoms on network television, as long as if it's a good show and people can relate to it, people will tune in. Whether it's through, on television or streaming, the network, streaming services, or through Hulu or Netflix, or even Amazon Prime, there's always going to be an audience for a sitcom as long as it's good. And I think that's going to be the key here for some people. I think as long as it's a good sitcom, or any show for that matter, people will tune in. That's always been my synopsis about it, and I've felt that way for years.
I agree with you to a point. I think if you want to put it on network television, like you say, you have to have universal themes and make it relatable to everybody. Like you said, like Blackish, I think it will work. But I think if you wanted to, because there's always been Black critics that said that, like they came after the Cosby Show, to a lesser extent, A Different World, and of course, Family Matters back then, to a lesser extent, Family Matters. Oh, they didn't give enough of the Black experience. And they didn't do this, they didn't do that. We as Black Americans, we have many different experiences, okay? We're not monolithic. Let me just get that straight right now. Let me repeat it again. We're not monolithic, okay? But if you wanted to do what you want to do as far as tell different experiences and different stories. I think those will be reserved for your streaming platforms, okay, like Netflix and Hulu, so you can get away with a little bit more. But as far as being universal and things along that line for network television, I think that form, like you mentioned, will work, especially in 2021, even though we're more PC than ever before political correctness. I don't want to dig deep too much, but, as long as you don't rock the boat too much, I think you'll be fine if you want to get your work on network television. Now, like you said, streaming services, you still have to, you can get away with a little bit more to a point, but as far as network television, you still going to have to play the game some.
Well, and I get very miffed when I hear people say, well, shows like the Cosby Show or Family Matters didn't do too much of the, it wasn't black enough. That's the one thing I've seen from people who watch Cosby, that, oh, it wasn't black enough. Oh, it wasn't this. It was just, I just get very offended because, like you said, not everybody, has one experience. I mean, you don't.
Exactly.
I mean, you want to be, universal, but you also don't want to be too graphic into it. You can't say that, well, one black family has this experience and another black family didn't have this experience. You can't do that. You have to be universal. But look, if you want to do that kind of thing, like you said, so you probably, Hulu and Netflix is probably going to be the better place for you. But overall, I think, look, the reason why the Cosby Show, Family Matters, we all talk about the quality of the shows. That's for another episode. But I think that there's always going to be an audience for those kinds of shows and for any show as long as it's good.
All right. On that note, you can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
You follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan_McGee on the IG.
You can follow this podcast, Second City Sports First, right here on YouTube at War Media. The video versions will drop every Monday and Friday. Once again, the video versions will drop every Monday and Friday right here on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. You can catch our podcast at War on Anchor, which drops every Tuesday and Saturday. Once again, the audio version will drop every Tuesday and Saturday at War on Anchor, which kicks you over to Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and that iHeartRadio app. We're available on all podcast platforms. Type in that search engine box, WARR on Anchor. Go to weareregalradio.com for more details. That's WEAREREGAL radio.com. And you can follow us on all social media platforms, including here on YouTube at War Media. That's once again at WARR Media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and right here on YouTube.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends, folks.
Yes, and coming up on our next episode, we'll have a Chicago sports broadcasting legend. ... Well, as Dee from the old Dee and David show would say, we're going to leave you with a tease.
Exactly. So for Sid, I'm Lakeena. This has been Second City Sports Zoom style, and we'll see you Friday. Stay safe, wash your hands, mind your business, and wear your mask.
Till next time, holla!